Hey BookTube, it's Samantha, and here we're going to talk about a spoiler-free review of Middlegame by Seanan McGuire. I was anticipating that this was going to be a really good read for me, but I didn't know exactly how good. I heard about this book from Books and Lala, which I'll link her channel down below. I'm sure a lot of you already follow her or at least know of her, and this is one of her favorite books of the year. If not all time, I'm not sure about that, but definitely for the year. So I actually bought this book on a whim. This is something I don't normally do. I don't normally buy a new release book, but I figured that this book, if it's that good, the summary sounds really interesting, it would probably be up my alley. This book is mainly following twins, one boy, one girl, Roger and Dodger. Roger is really good with words, and it's just his ultimate passion. It's not just someone who has a higher ability of knowing a language and learning it. He has learned multiple languages and is extremely fluent. And then you have Dodger, who is the opposite and is really good with math, like way up there. Kind of like the same equivalent as Roger. So these two kids were actually made in a lab by this guy named Reed. And Reed is also a creation of this alchemist that had this dream of uniting this thing called the Doctrine in order to basically take over the world. I know that's kind of like a stereotypical villain plot, but you actually really don't see that too often in books, I feel like that's mainly a movie thing. So it was kind of cool to see it in book form, but you're just kind of following Roger and Dodger and trying to figure out how things are going to happen. I really love this book. I have this really bad habit of picking up a book and then reading it for a little bit, and then I get about a third of the way through, and then I put it down because I get distracted by something else, and I start reading that. And then I just don't get back to that book again. What are you doing here? This book was definitely the exception to that. As soon as I picked it up, it was the only book I thought about. I would go to work and think about how I'm gonna go home and read this book. I would go to bed thinking about how I want to read the book in the morning. All I could think about was this book. It's the only book I wanted to read. And honestly, it's been a while since I've had that feeling. I think the only ever time I've had that feeling is with Dragons of Twilight. Love this book, didn't read anything else while I was reading this book, and it's kind of big. It was just so refreshing to be able to read a book that I just 100% loved. This book, it's not a horror book, it's not a mystery, it's like a combination of relationships with sci-fi and some action. The first vibes that I was feeling when I was first reading it was a combination of The Passage by Justin Cronin and Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I was getting the Vicious vibes because Reed, who is the one who created the twins, definitely has that Victor vibe. Like right off the start, that's how it feels, and I really liked that feeling, and I think the embodiment of that feeling kind of went throughout the book, which I really enjoyed. And then The Passage, because of the whole lab thing. I'm not going to go into detail about that. Don't want to spoil it. Overall, it definitely wasn't what I was expecting. It's definitely a Seanan McGuire book. I'm noticing that after reading these books, with the exception of that one, she has a certain way of writing characters that are different from other books. So normally a book will have characters that have quirks, and they're not necessarily bad things. They might be things that society thinks are bad, but they're just a weird person. Seanan McGuire writes characters with actual flaws, like personality flaws that are not necessarily something that you would like to have them be a role model of, okay? They're not necessarily, like, yeah, they're a good person, but the way they do this, like, you really shouldn't live that way or being a jerk. You know, sometimes it happens. They're still relatable because that's a normal human experience. Sometimes we're jerks at certain times. Not all the time, but sometimes. I think she just did a really good job of writing characters that are actually real. So it felt like these characters were real, even though it's like this magical realism kind of thing going on. You know they're not real, but they feel real. They were written down in a way that was real, and they react in a very real way. And it just had me so invested in the story. Towards the end, it definitely gets more of that magical realism, like, okay, some weird shit's going on, and I don't know exactly what's going on, but I'm along for the ride. It definitely has at the ending. I'm not going to lie. And I think some people in their negative reviews, that's what they're referring. It seems like nothing happens for a while, and at the end, it's just some weird shit. But in my opinion, what I really loved about it was that it's about these twins and how they're just trying to live life and try to figure everything out. Meanwhile, they have this ability that could possibly take over the world if they make it together. When it comes to whether I recommend it or not, I kind of have some split things. So if you like Seanan McGuire's works, if you like real, like, not necessarily contemporary, but you know how it's like relationships and people trying to work things out. If you like that, if you are open to like the magical realism stuff, you're gonna love this. It's so good. Who I would not recommend this book for is people who are wanting something definitively one genre. If you're wanting something that is like horror, not necessarily gonna get that here. If you're wanting something that is keeping you on the edge of your toes and constantly wondering what to do, like, it's not a thriller. Like, that's why I didn't put thriller, because it's not a thriller. It has aspects of a thriller, but it's not. It's not. If you're a person who doesn't like your story to jump around, might not be for you. This book has, I'm not gonna say it, but it has some elements that require the story to jump around in the plot. And normally I'm a person who doesn't like that. I mentioned in my Stephen King review of books I DNF'd that was the reason why I DNF'd Cujo, was because the plot was just jumping around to all these different people and I didn't know what the world was going on. But with this story, it's different. You're following the same characters. They have to jump around the plot at different times, and that is explained in the book on why it's written that way. I felt like it was easy to follow. I didn't have enough time of keeping it straight in my head. When you look at the chapters, they have the time and the date for each chapter, and there was maybe 1 or 2 times where it's like, oh, wait a second, where is this in relation to what I've already read? So there was a couple of times I had to look back to be like, okay, that's where that's at. Okay, I get it. So that only happened 1 or 2 times for me. But if you're one of those people where you just want a continual linear story, this may not be for you. Overall, I mean, this cover is freaking beautiful. And then I absolutely love that it's black underneath too. It makes my black soul happy. It definitely has creepier elements in it. It definitely has some deaths in it that are described in some detail. Not to a horror, gory aspect, but I mean, they're in there. So if those are things that you like or don't like, also take that into account. Overall, this was definitely a 5-star read for me. I'm definitely going to be keeping it on my shelves because I just loved reading this book so much, and I could see myself rereading this book over and over and over again. Oh my God, loved it. Now I'm stuck in this position where I don't really know what to read next. I have some different ideas of what I want to read, but honestly, I don't know what to pick. So I'm gonna have you guys help me out on what to read next. One of those books is Once Upon a Dream, Sleeping Beauty's retelling. Should I read it right now or not? Not sure. This is on the list. Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. I have watched an episode or 2 of this, and it seems really intriguing, seems like a really good mystery. Maybe this? Not sure. In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire. I wanted to reread the first 3 books before getting to this, but if I can just jump into this one without reading book 3, that would be kind of nice. Just because I didn't enjoy that one as much as the other 2, but let me know, maybe this one. Dragons of Winter Night by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. This is the 2nd book in the Dragonlance series. I just talked about the first one and how I just loved reading that one. I figure maybe I should just keep going with the series, but I don't know. And then last one is Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. I'm kind of still feeling the horror vibe, but it's not October yet, so I don't know whether to wait until October for this or if I should read it now. It's kind of thin, so I'm wondering if I could just blow through it, but I don't know. So I'm going to attach a poll. It's either going to be down below, up above. I don't know how to poll works, so this is going to be new for me, but please vote on which book I should read next. I definitely want it to be one that's on my shelves, so have it be one of these, or if there's another book I should read that you've seen on my shelves, just leave it down below in the comments. Thanks, and see ya!